Hey everybody, thanks for watching. Now, with all of the recent killings of black people, especially innocent black people, a lot of people have questions. A lot of people want to know, how is it that cops can get away with this? Why is it that so many cops are getting away with killing black people and just, getting their jobs back and getting reinstated back onto the force? And what's going on? And one of the things I want to show to you and prove to you in this video, first of all, that the police, the government, they have the legal right to basically really kill you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Now, they basically own you. Now, I know that sounds crazy because a lot of people are going to say, well, it's a lot of people who sued the government or sued the police force and won cases. I'm going to explain that later. First of all, you should know something. Black people are not citizens of America. Black people are citizens of the United States of America. There are two separate things, and I'm going to explain how and why later too. But first, to get into this whole thing, we have to go back to 1856 to the Dred Scott case. Now, Dred Scott was a slave. He was suing his master, Sanford, for the freedom of himself, his wife, and his two kids. Now, Dred Scott felt like he was a citizen and his master is a citizen, therefore they both should be provided equal protection under the law. Now, this case went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled that he is not considered a citizen under the Constitution, because the Constitution considers a citizen a sovereign. People of the United States of America is the same as a citizen, and those people are called sovereigns, and sovereigns are white people. And he, being a black slave his ancestors was brought to America, that he's not considered a citizen of America. So he lost that case. Now, the Supreme Court ruled that black people are considered inferior, subordinate beings and are subject to the laws and rules of the government, whether emancipated or not. Remember that. And we have no rights or privileges according to the Constitution. And you got to remember, right before that, in 1776, what happened? You had the Declaration of Independence was passed, and this is where America gained its independence from King George III. Now remember, in 1776, we were still slaves, so it didn't apply to us. So we still celebrate 4th of July today, and really that day didn't apply to black people. Now, what happened in 1788, we had the U.S. Constitution was ratified. And the U.S. Constitution basically was ratified, and it was to replace the Articles of Confederation. Now, if you go to the U.S. Constitution, if you look at Article 1, Section 9, Clause 8, it says, no title or nobility is to be granted by the U.S. government or United States of America, meaning you can't make nobody a king. We just got away from a king, and we don't want to be making no more kings. And it basically said that all the people in America are the same. They are sovereign. So what happened? Okay, we know Lincoln freed the slaves. That's what everybody say. Well, of course we're citizens. Lincoln freed the slaves. Okay, so 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation went into effect. Now, what went into effect in 1862 on September 22nd, but the war was still going on and the Confederates didn't surrender. Well, it was a clause in there saying that it will go into effect January 1st, 1863. So really, 1863, January 1st is really Black Independence Day. I know we celebrate New Year's that day, but that's really the day we should celebrate Black independence, because that was the day that we got free. Now, Emancipation Proclamation. What is emancipation? To be emancipated means to basically be set free. You can go. It doesn't say the free proclamation, it means emancipation. You can leave, basically what it means. So think about it like this. Think about an emancipated minor. Now, an emancipated minor can leave his parents' home and go out into the world and fend for itself. But if that minor chooses to stay in his parents' house, guess what? He has to abide by the rules of his parents, meaning curfew, chores, can't bring that chick home at a certain time, all that. So apply that to us. The simple fact that we stayed in America and did not go back to Africa, we were subject to all the laws and rules of the government. Gets deeper though. Okay, so it was the 13th Amendment that basically abolish slavery. So when you look at the 13th Amendment, now you can't see it down there, but when you look at it, you have to really, it's not much. You basically have two sections, section 1, section 2. It was very, very straightforward, but filled with a bunch of things. Now, it says, neither slave nor involuntary servitude. Come on, man. This is legal words. Slavery or involuntary servitude. Involuntary servitude is slavery. Same thing. But they put that there for a reason. Okay, let me keep going. Except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. These are all legal terms. Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Now you have to understand that the Constitution is a legal document, meaning it is written in legalese. Legalese is a language. So when a lawyer speaks to another lawyer and they speak to a judge, they are speaking a different language called legalese. The reason you hire a lawyer is because you don't speak legalese. So you hire a lawyer and you are saying to the judge and to the court, hey, I don't speak this language, so here is my lawyer to interpret it for me. That's why they call lawyers a mouthpiece, because he's going to speak for you. Now, the lawyer and the lawyers are going to speak this language, and you're going to sit back and you're going to, find out what happens later on. Now, the simple fact that they wrote this the way they wrote it because they don't want people to be able to interpret it legally. Now, you have to be a person who speaks legalese to really get what's in this document. Now, this is my LSAT score for law school. I got a 167. A 180 is the highest you can get. So yeah, I speak legalese, and I'm not showing this to brag. I'm just showing this to let people know that I know what I'm talking about when it comes to the law, and I know how to read the law. So I don't want people thinking that, I'm just interpreting this video or the Constitution any way I want to. I want you to understand that I know what I'm saying. I know how to read this language. Now, skip all that. The simple fact that, well, first of all, the 13th Amendment basically is telling you that it's legal for them to put you in jail and to make you work like a slave for no money. So that's what it says. It's telling you that neither slavery nor involuntary servitude except as a punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted. So it's basically saying if you have been convicted of a crime, they can legally make you a slave in jail. So they can involuntarily make you serve them or do anything. This is the 13th Amendment. That's what it's saying. But as it applies to us, where it says neither slavery nor involuntary servitude. Now, as I said before, that is the same thing to the lay person. Slavery, involuntary servitude, same two things. But legally, you have to understand when you're reading contracts and you see something like that, be prepared for something. So what's next in the Constitution? You have the 14th Amendment. So 14th Amendment should address why it says slavery nor involuntary servitude. Now the 14th Amendment is dealing with citizenship. Now when you take a look at the 14th Amendment, it's a lot. It's paragraphs. The 13th Amendment was only about 4 lines. Now, the 14th Amendment is the most debated, part of the Constitution because it's misinterpreted a lot. But when you get to the part, to just the beginning of it, it says, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. Now, that's going to confuse a lot of people. But this is the thing, you have to really pay attention to the first part. It says, all persons born or naturalized in the United States. Okay, so if you're born here, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Period, point blank, end of it. Now, that's like me saying, I will give you this $1 if you pick up this cup and you put it down. So you have to pick it up and put it down to get this $1. So you have to be born in the U.S. and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. What does that mean? Okay, so first you got to understand something. When the slaves were set free, there was a big debate whether or not to give the free slaves the same sovereignty or the same, make them the same level as white people. Now, 2 states agreed to do so, Pennsylvania and New York. Everybody else was against it. Now, they had a debate whether or not to do this, and if we wasn't going to do this, what are we going to do with the people who choose to stay in America? So, like the Constitution says, in order for you to be a citizen, you had to become subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. So that's what they did. In exchange for black people being citizens in the United States, they gave up their freedom, again, to become subjects to the jurisdiction of the United States. Now, yeah, that didn't sound so bad back then because they gave it probably like a fancy name like civil rights, something like that, and got them back in there and said, well, you know, you're going to be free like everybody else. You're just subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. Now, a lot of people are going to say, you know, you might not believe what I'm saying or what I'm telling you, but you can do the research on your own. But you need to think about something. If black people were the same or had the same rules and rights as white people, how come Dr. King had to march for civil rights? How come we couldn't vote in the 60s if we were the same as white people? We were the same kind of citizen as a white person. Why couldn't we vote? Why we had to go through integration and all that bullcrap? It's because it's different. Now, believe it or not, this whole thing applies to white people as well. And in the time around the 60s, white people were also subject. They were no longer sovereigns. They became subject, just like black people, to the jurisdiction of the United States. And I'm gonna tell you how that happened. Now, before I get into all that, it's something that's very important that you need to understand. The Constitution, the Bill of Rights, they do not give a person rights. They only list the rights that a person already has. So the Constitution and the Bill of Rights are basically for the government. They tell the government how to deal with the sovereign person. It doesn't give you rights or give you laws or rules. You already have rights. You are born with certain unalienable rights endowed to you by the Creator. So the forefathers basically said, hey, can't nobody make you do anything for real, because we all on the same par. The Creator created us all, and he didn't create one man over another. So you are born free, period, point blank. Now, the only way you can get a person to become subject to you is to do it legally, and to get them to legally sign themselves over to you, which is what they did with black people and the free black slaves. They legally got them to sign their freedom over to the U.S. government in exchange for benefits and privileges. You have no rights. You only have benefits and privileges. And they later got white people to do the same, and I'm explaining how later. Now, it's something else you need to know about the 14th Amendment. Now, a lot of people always ask the question, how come black people didn't get reparations for slavery? You know, the Jews got reparations for the Holocaust, the Indians they don't have to pay no taxes, but black people, we were enslaved for over 1,200 years and we get nothing. How come? Now, when you read the 14th Amendment, Article 4, it basically tells you a few things. 1, you cannot question the national debt. Period, point blank. You can't question us being in debt. 2nd, if you lead any kind of rebellion against the government and you have destruction of property, or they blow up your house or anything like that, they don't have to pay you back for that. But it also says that they are not obligated, or they do not have to pay any money for loss of emancipation. So to any slave. So basically, if you were a slave and you want money incurred for all those years of slavery, they don't have to pay it because you are now subject to their jurisdiction, and they don't have to pay you one dime. So that's it's in the Constitution for you people who think we should get reparations. And a lot of people tiptoe around that, but the Constitution says it, but nobody wants to come out and publicly admit it, even though it says it right there in the 14th Amendment. It's basically telling you we're not going to get no money for reparations just because we are so-called U.S. citizens. But also, that's not the part I wanted you to know. Deeper than that, when you become subject to the jurisdiction of the government, you have to realize one thing. If you were not naturalized in America, then you are not subject to you do not have all of the privileges and rights of a normal citizen. So once you become subject to the jurisdiction of the government, the Bill of Rights basically does not apply to you. So the government does not have to uphold the Bill of Rights to you. Now, the main two articles of the Bill of Rights they don't abide by, and you'll notice, is Article 9 and 10. Now, Article 9 has to do with common law. Article 10 is basically what this video is about, and I want you to listen carefully. Now, Article 10 says, excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishment inflicted. Okay, so remember, as I said earlier, the Bill of Rights and the Constitution is for the government. It's instructions or rules for the government to use to deal with citizens. So the government is not supposed to impose excessive fines or bail, and they are not supposed to inflict cruel and unusual behavior on its citizens. So that should tell you right there. Do they impose excessive bail? Of course they do. Do they impose excessive fines? Of course they do. Do they inflict cruel and unusual punishment on the citizens? Of course they do. So what does that tell you? It tells you that we are not citizens. You are subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. You're not a citizen. You are a subject. How did that happen?